Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a review of 13th Doctor comic book, I guess. I mean, it's kind of I'd say this is probably one of the best introductory sort of comic books to Titan Comics if you were to not have any prior knowledge of the Titan Comics range and whatnot. Firstly, going over the cover, I adore the cover. The cover is obviously of the 13th Doctor, as played by Jodie Whittaker, being the first female Doctor, and then she's kind of got all this like regeneration energy around her and stuff. And then you've got the other 12 Doctors around her and stuff. You've got this lovely sort of Gallifreyan text as well at the top. And I like the logo as well. That logo is kind of growing on me. However, I still don't particularly care for it on classic Who products and whatnot. But then on the back you've got bio about this sort of story, sort of thing, as well as a lovely picture of all the different Doctors as well. And then on the inside you've got all the writers and artists and colorists and whatnot, as well as like a previously, because it's sort of set as the Doctor's regenerating from 12 to 13. And then you have little stories from the first Doctor, which I like the art style on the first Doctor one, even though the story is very short. It's very cool. It's very interesting. Every story's kind of narrated as well, almost as though the Doctor's thinking about these stories as the 12th Doctor's regenerating, and that. Then you've got this second Doctor story, which is okay. I think it's not great. I think the first one that I actually like is probably the third Doctor one. I really like the art style here, and that. And then we've got Sarah Jane as well in this one, and that. I really don't like the fourth Doctor one. I hate the art style. The art style is just ridiculously cartoony and childlike, and that, and is really odd in contrast to like the third Doctor one. It's such a juxtaposition. Even the third Doctor, the second Doctor one kind of looks alright art wise, and then the first Doctor one almost looks kind of like an oil pastel painting. It's kind of weird, and that. But yeah, the fourth Doctor one just looks ridiculously cartoony, and I don't really like that. Then you've got this really cool shot and panel of the 13th Doctor there, and then you've got like this Time Lord sort of story. It kind of reminds me of Hellbent, which is not a great thing because it's set in the cloister. No, is it the cloisters where those like slider creature things are? And that, and then there's like a comment about the fact that there's a Time Lord in that story in the fifth Doctor one who regenerates from a man to a woman. So there's a comment, like Nyssa makes a comment about like, I thought Time Lords couldn't change gender, and then obviously the Doctor says, well, gender's kind of fluid on Gallifrey and all that. So yeah, so depending on obviously your stance on the whole gender change thing in Doctor Who lore and mythology, that might trigger you. But yeah, and then the sixth Doctor story is okay, and that there's nothing to stand out in the story. It's not great. The art style's okay, but as I say, I think the story's meh. Same with the fourth Doctor one actually. The story's not great either. It's just kind of meh. The fifth Doctor story is decent. I think of the first 6 Doctors so far, the only one that stands out to me is probably the third Doctor one, really, as one that I really like. I like the 7th Doctor one, mainly because it actually has, spoiler alert, but the return of the Master in this one, which I kind of like. And I really enjoyed the 8th Doctor one. I think I really like this one because it has the I think it's the first one in the comic book, in each of the Doctors in this comic, that has the comic book companion. So I really like that. Like she's in the Eighth Doctor comics that I picked up ages ago by Titan Comics, and that's really cool. And I kind of like the art style as well. It's not proper dark and serious like, say, the Third Doctor one, but it's a bit more like less intense and that, but it's not as sort of goofy and cartoony as, say, the Fourth Doctor one was. You even get a War Doctor sort of story as well, and that, which I liked, as well as then some more panels after the War Doctor story ends. You get some more panels of the 13th Doctor as well. You've got lovely panel of like the ring falling from a hand, and her eyes as well, like a shot from her eyes. I adore the Ninth Doctor one. I really enjoyed because it links up, and I love it when Doctor Who does this, where a reference or just like a throwaway line, or what you would consider a throwaway line in, say, I think it's Bad Wolf. The Doctor says something about, like, you know, the transmat beam taking them away from the TARDIS, and he says, oh yeah, we were in Japan, Kyoto, 1836 or something, or whenever the year was. And then it's like, this comic's actually set then, and I'm like, okay, so this, I clearly know in the timeline that this story happens, you know, between sort of, or before Bad Wolf, but after Boomtown in the timeline, which I really like, and that I really like it when they sort of, they make a comment in the show, and then an external sort of media tells that story, whether it be the Titan Comics in this case, or the Big Finish audios or whatever. And yeah, I just like the Ninth Doctor. Obviously, he's one of up there in my top 5 probably. I don't really care for the 10th Doctor one, but I guess that's just sort of saying, oh, there's a woman in history and she's going to be the first female Doctor, and then that obviously links in with the whole female Doctor thing. In the show, the 11th Doctor one's really naff, and I really don't like how Matt Smith is drawn in this story. It looks really weird. I think it just looks odd. I am kind of... I like the 12th Doctor Dalek story, but I also don't, in the sense that I like that Bill's there, and that in this story, and I like how the Daleks, well, I say are in this story, but technically aren't, which is a shame. But I guess, really, maybe the writer of that story in particular thought maybe the Daleks are being done to death, so a bit of fatigue on our part. And then you've got some more lovely shots of Jodie, and that, just generally looking at the console as well, seeing a reflection of that, and then just this awesome shot of her on this like sort of ledge, seeing like this awesome sunset and that, and then you've got like just an advertisement for the rest of the range and stuff. And yeah, basically it's like it really is good. I'm surprised, well, I'm not surprised because this retailed for $6.99. I was going to say I'm surprised that this didn't come out for Free Comic Book Day, but in some respects, obviously, it's like, 13, 12 different stories, so it's like, it would be a bit much to give this away for free. But yeah, so it cost me $6.99. I'd say it was definitely worth that much. I did enjoy the first Doctor story. Second Doctor story was okay. Liked the third Doctor one quite a lot. Fourth Doctor one was a bit naff, which is a shame considering it's my favourite Doctor. Peter's one was good. Fifth Doctor story. Sixth Doctor one was meh, okay. Seventh was really good. Eighth was good. Wars was fine. And that, I mean, I think as a advocate and a really as a person who grew up with the new series, I think I'm a lot more critical of when Big Finish, or in this case the comics, do anything based around the Time War, because as I say, because I grew up with the Ninth Doctor as my first Doctor, I'm very much more critical of that sort of time period of Doctor Who mythology and lore, and that in the comics and in Big Finish, because I actually want them to tell really cool different stories, or just really interesting and really big scale and you know, like sort of ambitious stories, but also sort of maybe epic war stories, but with the sort of timey-wimey stuff that Doctor Who is very good at doing, and that. Or maybe the reason what I'm saying is basically, I think from the Time War sort of stuff, I expect more because I grew up with that being a myth and a legend in the show and that, and now to see it in comic books or hear it in Big Finish, I don't want my imagination to be let down, basically, or what I concocted in my head when I was a kid to be sort of ruined by what they do. But yeah, I mean, there was a nice tie-in with the War Doctor story to a character who would be later in the show in the Doctor's timeline, as well as a sort of place and a planet that gets referred to in the Ninth Doctor era, as well as the 12th Doctor's last story as well. And if you know what planet I'm on about, 10 Doctor's Assistant 1 points to you, I guess. Eighth Doctor story was really fun. As I say, I like the setting of the ship as well. That sort of pirate ship. I guess it would have been nice if we'd seen some more stuff from Africa when they caught this sort of creature, an alien specimen sort of thing. But yeah, obviously, if you've never picked up any Titan comics before, this would probably be the best starting point, because, as I say, it's a little taster from each of the 12 Doctors throughout the Doctor's timeline, and gives you a really good idea of the different art styles and writing that people do for the Titan comics. So yeah, thanks for watching, comment, rate, and subscribe.